Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I'm your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Franco Burrows, the man, the myth, the legend. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome. I got my South Africa colours on you. I've been speaking to Mark.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but he's done some sort of a Jedi mind trick on me, because I wasn't wearing this jumper when I spoke to him, and then I spilt something on it, the one I had on, and then all of a sudden I got the South Africa colours on. So yeah, feeling
Mark,
very good.
also one of our coaches at the Powerful Man. So he does have some Jedi tricks. He's on the guys to help him get over the line, as we say.
He's awesome. When I think of Mark, I think of you know, uh, he's a very noble man, isn't he? And I think of him as wearing, the Knights of the Round Table, the suit of armor.
Yep.
He takes off the helmet, and there's Mark sitting there, having a chat.
he would definitely be welcome at that table in any period of time.
Round table.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Franco, you had a couple things you wanted to bring to the table. Let's kick it off. What do you want to talk about today?
Right. So one thing, we always talk about how can we help the men the most, and what are they struggling with.
Yep.
And as you know, I speak to hundreds of men every month that come into the movement. And one thing not all, but I would say if there was a conversation that sums up the majority of conversations, it's around men who are in one way, shape, or form saying, I want unconditional love. Why doesn't she support me? I want to feel, probably if we had like a top 10 word or phrase, it would be
Hold
definitely.
On. I'm going to pause 1 second and leave that cliffhanger, right? Because I know some people are going, listening to this going, thank goodness it's not Tim, right? No, we can understand this guy. Now, at the Powerful Man, we talk a lot of trash with each other amongst the coaches and everybody else because it's real guys. So, Franco, I want to give everybody who may not know you, which is going to be one or two guys listening to this in the world. But so Franco went through the program, went through the activation method, Alpha Reset, jumped into the Brotherhood, was there. And then we were so passionate about the work that we do as a movement and as an organization that you jumped on board in a bigger way and actually sold your company in Swansea, right? The head of the Swansea serve over there. And we're able to move on and join the movement. And now you spend your days really helping the men as an alumni and graduate. A lot of it in the Facebook group, but really making sure that guys that raise their hand and say, hey, look, I'm ready to step up and step into my, what I really need. You're usually the first guy that they get to chat to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's absolutely fantastic. So anyway, I didn't want to interrupt you. I can imagine a couple guys listening to this going, who is this Franco guy? So just a fantastic, fantastic man. It's been an honor for me to see your journey from start to here. And just a great guy and a decent table tennis player.
Yeah, actually, when we were going through the Alpha reboot stuff, I was done really in half an hour. It was just a case of, okay, 21 goals, 2021. It was like, got to beat Doug at table tennis. That was it. I was done after that. I'd had my breakthrough.
We had a great time in Morocco at one of the Brotherhood retreats. But so anyway, I just want to give guys a little bit of info on you. So you were talking about what are some of the words that are coming out of guys' mouths when you talk to them as it relates to unconditional love?
Yeah. So I hear so many men say, I just want us to feel, I want to feel like we're in a team. I want us to feel like we're working together. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of it comes from the differences between men and women. What do you reckon? I mean, here's a question for you. Do you think men and women love differently?
Yes, I do.
All right.
So how do I think we love differently? I think women, what I'm going to say right now is I think women have a very nurturing attitude towards themselves when they want to, when they're vested. But I also think it's easier for women to detach than it is for men. in my experience dealing with the guys. Once they've detached and rationalized, they go through a grieving process sometimes, but once they're done, right? Whereas men, I think men love and serve. We love to serve and protect those around us. And as such, our love comes from a different type of a desire to be nurtured in some ways.
Definitely. I agree with that. I mean, just to give a bit of a backstory for me personally, when I found a powerful man, I'd already been through a lot of shit. And, I discovered you and Tim did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on the red pill.
Yep.
And I don't think you mentioned it directly, but what my introduction to the red pill was Rollo Tomasi.
Yeah.
The Rational Mill. And without going into all of that stuff, a lot of it made sense to me, made complete sense, right? And it made me understand where I'd been going wrong because I had the same thing in relationships. I was always like, why don't I feel like we're on the same team? Why do I feel like actually she's working against me rather than with me? And Tomasi actually talks about this. I don't know. I wouldn't like to say what they do, but I wasn't aware of anything they actually help men, because I went through a lot of anger when I understood a lot of this red pill stuff. It was like, shit, I've been, conditioned to believe the opposite of what's true in male-female dynamics. And I had a sense of nihilism. It's like, what's the point, So I don't know. I can't speak for a lot of the men in this sort of the red pill community or whatever you want to call it. But I think there's a lot of guys floating around there just thinking, yeah, what's the fucking point? Women are not going to work with us. So yeah. What does Rich Cooper say? He says, women just want to hang around at the finish line and be with the winner, Whereas, like you say, for most of us, most men, we want to feel like, well, inevitably in life, there's going to be ups and downs.
Oh yeah.
So we want someone who's going to be with us in the down periods, so that when we really win, we can say, yeah, she was with me. She loved me unconditionally through that.
From the bottom to the top, right?
Yeah. And women have obviously got their own there's a whole psychology around why women are that way, and it's not about judging either way. It's just about understanding. And I've got to say, the powerful man really helped me get to a place where I got rid of that nihilism. I got rid of that sort of bitterness, if you like, or the bitterness of taking the red pill. I can honestly say I'm in a place in my life where, yeah, it's, without going into it all the personal transformation stuff we do in the Alpha Reset, really helped me get there. So one of the things Tomasi says, which I think is true, is like, men are the real romantics in many ways. I'm not saying women aren't, but, I see it every day. I hear it every day from men. They're the ones who really hold on to that idealistic dream of, what do we call it? The soulmate.
Yeah.
Which in some ways I think it is a bit of a myth. But what do you think?
About soulmates or unconditional love?
How the unconditional? I think they're actually quite linked. The two ideas.
So yeah. So in terms of soulmates, do I think there's actually a soulmate? No, I don't. I don't believe in that. Do I believe that you can find someone and get so connected to them that you want to continue the journey with them? Absolutely. Right. Yeah. Through thick and thin. The bell-shaped curve, right? So extremes on every side. I do think that, a lot of guys are more romantic when things are tough, right? And what I mean by that is what happens to a lot of guys, a lot of men, at least it happened to me, Franco, is I was probably very romantic at the very beginning. And then when things got tough, I started to step up my game. But I had a middle part, in the beginning in my relationship where it wasn't romantic in the classic sense. Now I know you're talking different. You're talking like holding on to this ideal of the perfect marriage, the perfect family, and the white picket fence, and the 2.3 kids and the dog and all that stuff. I think women have that at the beginning. I think they get disillusioned and move past it faster than we do. Right. So I'll speak for my wife for a second, which is always dangerous. But we talk very openly. We have a great relationship. She had that same thing too. Right. The idea you get married, everything's perfect. It's a Hallmark card, what we have over here, and you look just like the people on the TV shows, and everything's great and you're happy, and you just put your head down, get a little work done, barbecues, the whole thing. But I think what happens is, as guys happen, is things start to go wrong for us. We start to go, oh shit, I'll fix it. Whereas women start to go, oh shit, I'm going to find a way out. Right. Mm-hmm. That's their version of fixing it, I think. And you and I talked real briefly offline about the need for security for women. And I think that's part of where that comes from, is that need for security. But I think guys need it too. And that's why guys hold on. Right. Because and want the nurturing. We want to go out to battle, so to speak. Right. Which is the world. Go out there, get what's ours for our family, and then bring it back to our kids and our wife. And we want them to look up to us with admiration. Right. That sounds awesome. I want that. Do you want that? I mean.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. What I've noticed is how important respect is. I don't know about you, but if I was to think of all the things that make me attracted to a woman, respect isn't actually high up on the list. It's not a decisive factor.
Yeah.
I want to be a nice person. And obviously I want to be physically attractive, et cetera, but respect, I don't know. I don't know if it's in the top 5 even, to be honest. But for a woman, if she doesn't respect a man, it's like game over.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talk about, so we start off with unconditional love, but coming back to this is one of the things I love talking with you, was we're just able to free flow. When it looks at respect, one of the first things that when the guys come through, when I get the opportunity, which is pretty rare to talk to them, is, they've fallen into a role of just doing things around the house to make their wife happy, to please their wife, as a lot of people call the Mr. Nice Guy, approach. And they're craving their wife's respect. And while they're craving their wife's respect, they've lost it, right? They're trying to do things to please her, thus, as we call it, emptying your cup, right? So they're going to work, they come home, they do the dishes, they take care of the kids, get their wife a glass of wine so she can sit on the couch because she's been at home all day. They take care of everything else. Then it gets time for bed. She's on her phone. She turns to her side. She goes to sleep. Maybe she says some gruff things to him. He has no sex, no love. He wakes up in the morning early, starts doing stuff around the house to make it easier for her, because then, if it's easier for her, then she'll want to have sex with him. I know you know the story, but I'm sharing a little bit more for the guys. And then what ends up happening, she loses respect for him, and the guy blows up. He gets pissed. One day she's like, you didn't do the dishes. And he's like, what the heck? I go to work, I do this, I take care of the kids. What are you doing all day? And then they get into a blow up fight. She gets hurt. She's crying. She goes to the room, shuts the doors, tells him he's a jerk, and how could she ever, talk to him like that? And now they're, not talking for 3 weeks, let alone not having sex. And so maybe if he's a good boy, he gets laid or gets a blowjob on the couch, maybe. And this goes on for years. And some of these guys are going, I haven't had sex in 6 months. I haven't had sex in 6 weeks, 6 years, right? Or whatever it is. For every guy's different in their story. And that, I think, is where we get into the respect issue. One of the things that we teach them in the activation method is how to gain back their wife's respect in a way that she'll appreciate. So not being a jerk. There's a lot of this pickup stuff that's out there where it's like, oh, just be a jerk and be an asshole. That's not what we teach. It's basically, we show the guys how to be a man in such a way that your wife will respect you. And now what happens, and happens within a week for a lot of these guys, some takes longer, but then all of a sudden the wife starts chasing them. right?
Absolutely.
And it's a different protocol. So that's where it comes back to respect. And since I've just had a cup of coffee, I'm gonna keep. One thing I want to talk to you about, because I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is the unconditional love, because I think it ties in. I think the reason men want unconditional love, at least I did, from their wives, is because they don't have unconditional love for themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'd agree with that.
That's what it took for me anyway to get to the other side.
Yeah, because there's that whole thing of, you know, I was literally talking with a friend about this the other day, and he was like, I've had it in a relationship where I've literally got sick, chronically sick, and I definitely noticed a drop in the relationship. You know, it was like, shit, something's changed. I'm sick. You know, what do we do now? You know, it wasn't that sort of, you know, when we're around, you know, women will look after each other and know how to meet each other's needs, but also men will know how to meet each other's needs as well. You know, and I don't know about you, but for me, I've got friends who literally haven't done anything for me in 10, 15, 20 years, but because they did something for me when I was a kid, or they looked after me, or they didn't bully me, or whatever it was, they are still my friend, and I'll do anything for them. Yeah. But that's not going to fly in a relationship with a woman. We have a different, I don't want to say point scoring system, but a different way of, you know, measuring someone's worth or having that validation of what, you know, let's say that is someone I can love, you know?
Yeah. I think it's different than just necessarily love, right? We've done a podcast on hypergamy, right? The idea that women naturally, biologically, the theory, they're always looking to go up the chain for protection. I also think what you're talking about here is loyalty and a version of respect, right? You have history with your friends in the past, but you also respect that they did something for you without expecting something in return. And that's high on your moral code, right? The men that we serve.
Yeah, I was looking for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, the men that come to the powerful man are usually always men with high integrity. They respect and expect loyalty, right? It's just something that we attract. There's other men's organizations out there that, you know the name, we don't need to talk about. I'm not talking ill about anybody, but they tend to attract a lot of bark, right? A lot of guys that are talk a lot, yell loudly, you know, etc. And that's all, because I know some of these guys, it's all bark, no bite. And the respect thing isn't there for a lot of these guys. Like you know, they've been for whatever reason, either they've been screwed over and they decide they need to screw over other men, et cetera, et cetera. We don't attract that. And by not attracting that, Franco, I'll put the point out, or the discussion point, that we expect our women to be the same, right? We expect our women to be loyal, to respect us, etc., unless proven otherwise. And that's where men, I think, fall into the trap. Is we think, wait a minute, we didn't do anything, we didn't have a conversation, I'm just doing better stuff, our relationship should be better. And we're playing a different game, right?
Exactly.
You're a high competitive football player or soccer player, as we say in the States, right? But if you step onto a basketball court, which you could probably smash it, but if you stepped onto a basketball court and started trying to juggle the ball with your feet, you're not playing the right game, right? And I think that's where men and women can miss it sometimes. It's just a different game altogether, and nobody sat down and explained the rules.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember this. One thing I really struggled with, and we got into this in the Powerful Marriage Reset, which was awesome, by the way. You know,
thank you.
Yeah, it was amazing to see the men really step up and transform themselves, their relationships. So
those guys are awesome.
Yeah, and you talked about the 3 levels of relationship. You know, level 1 is where you're both just there to get what you can from the relationship. Level 2 is transactional, where I'll give you this if you give me that. So that's the classic, what you just described, isn't it? You know, with the woman saying, well, you know, if you're a good boy, I'll give you a blowjob or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the third level is, I can't remember what name we call it, but it's basically unconditional love, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. The third level is really, yeah, it's unconditional love for yourself, for your wife. It's doing things without expectations.
Yeah.
Right. So I know you don't have any kids that you're aware of right now. Franco's a world traveler, guys, and he's out there, a man of myth, the legend. I tease you, obviously. He's a very dedicated guy. But having children, and I'm trying to relate this to guys, Franco, how they can think of it, is having children. Like you don't go pick your 3-year-old up out of the crib with the expectation that all of a sudden he's going to go clean the house, right? You just don't. You do it because you care for him, right? You do these things because you care for him. And that's a version of unconditional love, right? And so the third level is you do things for your partner, your wife, because it's good for her, because you care about her, not for what you're going to get in return. I think that's something you, Franco, just do naturally. And that's why, everybody who doesn't like Franco, right? Who doesn't like Frankie? You just naturally have that in you.
Yeah. I tell you what I struggled with in relation to this, because when we were going through it, I like most other people, I was like, yeah, that sounds, who doesn't want that? Yeah. That relationship where nobody keeps score, and it's not like, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. It's just, you give everything you can all the time. And one thing, going back to that thing about, if you get sick, or if you don't finish first, if you're not the guy at the at the finish line, and who finishes first, etc., etc. And I remember talking to you about it, talking to Arthur about it, talking to Tim about it, and what I was struggling with. Well, if it's unconditional, I know I've got to keep. I know if I'm giving unconditionally, right, then that's all that matters. As long as I decide to do that, I get that. But when you get to a point where you can't give any more, or whatever else, so what happens if I do get sick, etc., etc. What I came to realize, and this is what I want the men to understand, who may be struggling with the same thing, is that you can both, you get to level 3 and you are both giving unconditionally. That's the great thing about it. Nobody's keeping score. But here's the difference between men and women. What I've learned anyway, is that in any area of life, whether it's finances, whether it's going out on dates, whether it's whatever, if women have to lead all the time, they quite like to step up and lead now and again. But if they are the ones who always have to be out in front, then you're going to be in trouble. Okay, it's not going to happen.
Yep.
So if we want it to be unconditional, we have to lead with the unconditional love. We have to lead with that. If we want to heal the relationship emotionally and clean the slate, and obviously we've got a whole method around that, we have to set the standard. We have to lead the way. That's the biggest lesson I learned with all this. It's remembering that, yeah, you can have all that, you can have all the unconditional love, but you have to lead the way with it. And if things start to drop, then it's your job to get it back up to level 3. You can't wait for her to get it back up to level 3. Do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I think of level 3, I agree, and with caveats, though. You know me. My view of level 3 is I'm doing it unconditionally. Thus, if she doesn't do it, it doesn't matter. Right now, it doesn't matter in the sense that I'm still going to do it because I care for her. Kind of like the idea of you're in a toxic relationship, right? Just say, or you fall out of love with your wife, and you still do things because you love her, even though you break up with her, or your wife and you divorce, right? Because I know couples like this going through so much of this work, they separate. This is kind of this whole Hollywood conscious uncoupling stuff. But you separate and you still love that person for who they are, and you want the best for them, but you want the best for you. So you've moved on. That's where I look at it as a level 3. You're doing what's best for everybody without expectation, including yourself. So if your wife's playing at level 2, though, there's only so long you're going to last in that relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And same thing with her. If she's on a level 3 and you're in a level 2, which is what I think a lot of the guys can, well, I don't know if that's true either, But some of the guys can be at a level 1 and their wife at a level 2. And that's when they find their wife too late. It's knocked on the door of somebody else's house, and so to speak, and she's already left.
That's a really good point. I remember that was something else that was interesting. Speaking to you guys when I started, was you all mentioned that it really, no matter how much you work on yourself, it really helps to have a partner who's working on herself. Because then there's only so long you can keep it up. If she's not responding, it doesn't mean she has to do courses all the time. I mean, how would you define it as someone who's working on themselves in that way?
I think for everybody it's different. I can tell you, for me, I went the audiobook route just like you. I took courses remotely just like you, right, Franco? And nothing moved the needle until I really dove in, and my wife dove in. So my wife coaches women, right? She's running out, as you know, a course for women specifically around this. And when the man and the women are both working together, they're taking care of themselves. So they're filling their cups. And then you have a third entity, which is the relationship. You're able to come together. That's the way my wife and I were able to do it. I went through coaching. My wife went through coaching. And out of that, we were able to come together, and we created an amazing marriage. And we still, I always have a coach in my corner. I think everybody should, right? Just like sports, right? You could be the best table tennis player, but you need a coach in your corner to see the weaknesses in your game, right? You need somebody watching you and going through there. The best CEOs in the world have coaches. I've coached some of the best CEOs, right? Personally, but other people have them, right? Those coaches should have coaches. You need those optics. And the same goes in your relationship, right? Tim and Amelia, and Tim talks about this openly, because they're using the same intimacy coach my wife and I did. We decided, doing the work we did, we said, crap, let's take coaching before there's a problem, right? Because most of us go, oh, our relationship's having problems. Now let's go into a program. Now let's get coaching. No. I mean, you got to do it then, but be proactive and do it. Going through a course or something that resonates you. It doesn't have to be the activation method. You and I think it's absolutely the best out there, but it can be something else. But yeah, I think you got to answer your question. I think your wife will have to do it. Otherwise you'll be some stagnation. If you're on a path of growth, if you're just taking the activation method and the alpha reset and you're solid, good chance she's going to follow your lead. Cool. But if you want to continue growing like you did, right? You joined the brotherhood and all of a sudden you're working on your business, you're working on all these other aspects of your life. Your partner at that point is going to have to make a choice, right? Because you're growing. Is she going to grow with you or stay stagnant? And it's a really tough pill for a lot of people to swallow.
Yeah, and I much prefer, because I was one of the many men, I would say more than half of the men that come to us have tried marriage counseling, relationship counseling. I was one of those. And I can say it definitely didn't work.
It didn't work for me either, man. It made it worse.
So I'm a big believer in working on yourself and then bringing a better self into the relationship rather than, and again, this comes back to like the differences between men and women. Like a woman can love you to bits, but when you get in front of a counselor, whether it's a man or a woman, or in our case, it was actually another couple, and they were lovely people, but the dynamics are all wrong for the man and therefore for the relationship, because what are you doing? You're saying, we don't know what we're doing. Okay. Help us. You know what you're doing. You're in their frame. Okay.
Yes, you're in their frame.
For a man, because what's your woman doing? She's looking up at them. She's looking up at the man and the woman, and they know what they're talking about. What are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about problems.
That's the key.
So guess who's the problem? All of a sudden, maybe even looking down at you, looking up at them. It's all wrong. And what do we see in the relationship? That really start to work well. We see it like clockwork, don't we? With the men that we work with, that the woman is looking up to her man. So that doesn't mean he has to have the answer to every single problem in the world and he's like smashed everything. It just means that within that dynamic, he leads. He lives in his own reality, and that's why I'm a big believer in men getting coaching from other men, And it was one of the first questions I asked when I joined was like, okay, no, it's not that I didn't want to, I love women, of course. But it was like, I want to be coached by men, not by women.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Found that so awful,
Yeah. I think it's paramount, man. When you look at, this is just because I'm talking about the powerful man. Well, because it's my reality. It's where I spend my time and who I talk to. But I would say we have 100% success rate in getting men in a position where the woman they love respects them, right? And admires them. It may not be their wife because it may be too far gone, right? Mm-hmm. Right. That may happen, but it's the next woman that comes in, right? So most marriages repair. Most marriages get back together. I don't know the exact stats, but I'm going to throw out guys that come through the program. Over 90% of them repair their marriage. Not repair, but their marriage exceeds what it has ever been because the dynamics change. And those 10% that, she had filed for divorce before they came in the program or whatever, she's left, she's already gone. They've found the other woman and they've used what we teach them. And that dynamic is exactly what they've always wanted. And so it goes across the board to say, my experience with therapy and yours is you're digging up the past. You're the problem. You're in that situation. You got to talk about all these things. Women seem to remember every freaking thing you did wrong. You can't remember yesterday, right? Unless there's a big event. And that just doesn't work, right? Because then you're following her lead. And whenever any relationship, there's going to be a dynamic of an alpha and it just is. And someone's got to choose to lead. It's dancing. Someone leads the whole movement. And for most guys, we've been taught, I certainly have, Franco, is you got to be a good guy, got to be a better husband, got to do more around the house, you got to do all these things. And then your wife starts leading and she's like, I don't want to lead. It's a dynamic shift. And that's where we fall into a lot of problems.
That's just flagged up something for me. I just literally got off the phone with a guy who hasn't had sex since September. What are we in now? December. And he sat down with his partner and said, look, what's going on? Why aren't we having sex? And so the insight I gave him was, let's say this was not related to sex, but it was two men having a discussion, right? So men are problem solvers.
Yep.
And in that relationship, whatever the problem is, maybe it's in a homosexual relationship, for argument's sake, but men are problem solvers. So they're going to say, what's the problem? What do we need to do to fix it? Let's fix it. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what he was doing to his wife. He was just presenting a problem, hoping that she would help him fix it. Yeah. But his wife doesn't want that. His wife doesn't want to fix a problem. She wants to connect.
Yes.
So, and also what she wants really is a man who just gets it, which he would get if he was connected to her. Yeah. So, again, it's that, his whole thing was, well, if she loved me, why isn't she having sex with me? And she's like, well, because you don't get it.
Yeah. Oh.
So I suppose the message I've got is that it's not fair. It's not equal in love. There's men and women we just love differently. But as soon as we accept that, then we can start to appreciate the differences. Then we can actually start to have more. That's when we can have a bit more respect for women and like the way they work, the way they operate.
Yeah.
And the way they love it. It's just different,
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, I just want to say as well is that what it boils down to is that we have to continually be better because, like you say, hypergamy dictates that. Yeah. Whereas for a woman, if you go back to there was at least one, there may be in a whole series of studies around this where when a man moves in with a woman, our attraction to her, it does go down, but only very gradually over time. Okay. But a lot of the time her attraction just plummets, and one of the reasons might be, the hypergamy thing. So as long as she looks roughly the same or whatever, and we can still be attracted. Now we've got our dark side as well, like the fact that biologically we're programmed to spread our seeds, etc., etc. Whereas women are biologically programmed, like you say, to go up. So if they're going to cheat, they're going to generally cheat up the scale. Whereas men are just like, because it's there, the opportunity is there on the plate, I forgot what I was driving at with this, but yeah, I think what it is that the hypergamy drive in women, it actually makes us better as men, to keep up with that, but there's obviously a limit to how you can, we can't be obsessed with constantly having to be the best and et cetera, et cetera. So that's when it comes down to, like you say, it comes down to our own self-love, our own respect for ourselves, and what we're all about.
Yeah, I think when you look at, for the women, they're craving connection a lot of times, what you said, but that's where the triad of connection comes in, because it's not just connection. There's multiple facets to that level of connection and how you can do it. So you don't necessarily have to be the CEO of a Fortune 100 company or, Bill Gates to get your wife. If you can do the triad of connection and you're continuously working on improving yourself in one way, shape, or form, that's all that's needed, guys. And that's why that's one of the first things that we roll out to the men is teaching them how to get to that connection. So Franco, as we roll this conversation up, and I know I would love to talk to you for another couple hours about this. I know, but your schedule's tight, my friend, which is great because you're out there helping so many guys. What are a couple things that guys could take away from this right now?
I think the first one is to understand the differences with men and women and how we love. Women do love us. They don't love us in the same way. So not to expect the same, what was the word you used? They have a different code. They have a different code in the way that they love. So understanding that would be a massive one, the differences. Number two then would be to make yourself better. It's as long as it's done in a healthy way. Like you say, we don't have to be Bill Gates, although, yeah, I don't know if he's particularly Bill Gates is a
wealth. If you look at wealth, he's at the top of the food chain.
But yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, just use it. This idea that women love, they actually love. What's the word? It can feel opportunistically, which can be, it can be a bit disturbing for a man to realize that. So I link that now to, well, if I become a better man, is that a bad thing? Is that who am I harming by becoming a better man? So by growing and doing the work, and also as we teach the men, is to do it for his own sake. So when you decide to step up, live your best life, you're doing it for yourself. So you're doing it for selfish reasons as well as the impact it's going to have on your relationships, on the wider world.
Yep.
And then the third thing is leadership. You can get to level 3. That's my take on it. You can get to level 3 as long as you lead. You can take your partner there. And it can feel unconditional. But it's you that has to take it there, I would say.
Awesome. Wisdom as always, Franco. It's so great talking to you, man, and seeing you. I miss now with COVID. We haven't been to go to a brotherhood retreat in a little bit. So, I'll keep practicing my defense against the Swansea swerve serve, excuse me, as we go. So gentlemen, look, if you jump on a phone call, right, with a powerful man, it's not a sales call. You're jumping on with a guy like Franco, a real guy who's been through it, who's been through the program. These are alumni. Franco's an alumni who's doing this just to give back, right? So if you're a business leader, you own a business, you're looking at what we serve, you're looking to step forward, you can find Franco pretty easily. He's also extremely active in our Facebook group, and so are a lot of men coming through there. So you can find him there as well. And if you've been listening to us for a while, you know what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask that you jump on and just leave us a rating, right? Leave us an honest rating so other men like yourself can find us as well. Franco, as always, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate all that you do for men around the world.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate you as well. You're a top man.
Thanks, buddy. All right, guys, have an amazing day. And as always, listen to what Franco had to say and take action. We'll see you next time on the Powerful Man Show.